morning. We managed to we haven't got the council test. Good morning, Deputy Mayor and Councillors, CEO and Directors, ladies and gentlemen. When we gather together as a council and as a community, it's important to recognise the fact that this wonderful place we call home has seen a human occupation dating back about 60,000 years. And in our valley, that's the Iwi people. So as a council and as a community, we pay our respects to the traditional custodians and honour their elders, past, present, and those emerging. Now, this meeting is being streamed live and recorded in accordance with the council's standing orders, and it'll be published on our websites, of course, and being published live as we go. So welcome to our online audience and the members of the public. By attending this council meeting, I'll draw your attention to the bottom right of the screen there, that anything you say and do here will be recorded and broadcast and streamed live in accordance with the council's standing orders. I'm also obliged to tell you that if your actions are deemed inappropriate, we may have to pull you up or, at the extreme end, exit you from the chambers, which we hope that that's not the case. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I'll declare the meeting open and ask David Dobby from the Salvation Army to lead us in prayer this morning. David.
Let's pray. We are reminded today, Lord, that you are a good, good Father. Today, as we consider this, we pray for and lift up your own local leadership for your blessing. In appreciation of their services and responsibilities, we come before you with their needs in reverence, as well as seeking for peace among our nation. Thank you that our Mayor and Councillors serve the people of this great region of Makai. I pray that they would serve with renewed strength and address the needs of this community. Today, many of our cities and towns across Australia are struggling through COVID, natural disasters and social implications which affect us all. So today we seek your blessing upon our council, and we thank you for the blessings that you give us each and every day. We thank you for their experiences, their gifts, their abilities which qualify them to lead in this place. Lord, today we want to thank you that we live in a region such as this, which allows us to prosper and to create a supportive community. But we're also mindful of those today who are marginalised, who are experiencing financial heartache, who are experiencing life at its worst. Today we ask that in our conversations, you allow us to remember all of which this council serves. I ask today that you give this council capable assistance through the administration and staff serving the Makai region. May each one gladly contribute in any way, whether humble or significant. And we pray for unity of purpose so that good strategies and plans may be implemented quickly. Bless this council today as they meet, and provide for and protect each member and their families in these days. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate you being here. There's nobody absent on Council business. We've been trying to get Councillor Townsend to stream in this morning, but unfortunately that's not able to happen.
Not at this point. She's going to continue trying.
So until, and if it does happen, obviously I'll overrule this, but we need to confirm the attendance of Councillor Townsend today's meeting by audio-visual link, as allowed under section 245K of the local government regulation. If not, we'll deal with her absence later on. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried, thank you. Condolences? Are there any condolences, councillors? No condolences? Any conflicts of interest to declare today? None, thank you. Let's move on to the confirmation of the minutes. 7.1, the minutes are included, of course, for the meeting of the 13th of July. They're included in this agenda today.
I have a question, Worship.
Yes, Councillor England.
I believe there's an error in the minutes. Your on 11.4.3, the minutes recorded you as voting against the motion, but I didn't see you register you against the motion on the day.
Oh, well, we'll just make sure that that's done in the future, but I did vote against the motion, yes. So we'll record that as is in the minutes.
Okay.
It is in the minutes. It is?
Under the standing orders, the non-raising of hand does indicate a dissent to the motion, but but your practice has been to not raise your hand in support of a motion, and on 2 occasions you have registered your dissent by raising your hand. So I'm just worried the inconsistency.
Okay. All right, well, I'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay,
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor?
Not just a discussion amendment, Your Worship. In my speaking to the alternative motion, I referred to the artist by her surname as it was in her CV, and it's just been recorded that I called her Ms. Laura. I actually referred to her by her surname.
Those are changes then, yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? With those changes, would somebody like to move that the minutes be adopted? Councillor May, seconded by Councillor Bonaventura. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to the correspondence and officers report. Office of the Mayor and CEO, the strategic financial report for June 2022. CEO.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this report does report a significant operational surplus as at the end of June of $6.3 million. I just want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that that was done prior to our period 13 accounting. Period 13 is typically the first 2 months of the new 2 weeks of the new financial year, where we will record any payments made in July that actually relate back to the financial year 21-22. So there were some significant payments that were made in that period 13 period this year. So we do anticipate that 6.3 million surplus that was recorded as at the end of June will actually result in a modest surplus at the end of the wrap-up period. Some examples of things that were included within period 13 are things like our final pay run, which is a significant dollar value, contractor payments, and just an assortment of other invoices that were actually put forwards within that July period. Capital expenditure as at the end of financial year ended up at 85% of revised budget, with 94.2 million spent against the revised budget of 111 million. So we do continue to note that council project expenditure is an area of concern within this report due to current market conditions. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions for the CEO?
I do have one.
Councillor Bonaventura.
Just hang on, I grab it. Just in relation to on page 69, I note the reduction in borrowings by paying out the balance of the sewage loan of $36.4 million. Can I ask what costs were incurred in achieving this, and then what the savings would be in principal interest payments per year, and how many years were remaining on this loan?
CEO, I will answer that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Worship. So we had to pay an early interest adjustment fee of $3.8 million to actually pay out the balance of that loan. That has resulted ultimately in a saving to council. So there's 7.5 years left to run on that loan had it not been paid out. The repayments were $6 million a year, but the operational impact of that is the interest expense component, which was around $2 million. The balance was coming off the principal of the loan.
Thank you.
Further questions for the CEO?
Just in relation to
Councillor Bonaventura.
Now that 3.8 million we paid off, if that hadn't been done, would our surplus been in the vicinity of 9.7 or million or something like that? Would that have affected our surplus?
CEO.
Yep, thank you, Worship. It would potentially have been reported as a number like that at the end of June. However, with the period 13 reporting, we would have probably been more like the 3.9 that was reported as a March budget review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? No further questions. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor May moves. Second. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
I won't go over the surplus and the capital expenditure, as the CEO has already outlined that. I would like to note, as I do in most meetings, that those areas of concern, we still are faced with COVID-19, even though we as a community try to live with that going forward, but it certainly impacts council's staffing and our ability to perform some of our service delivery. Of course, the asset data cleansing process is still being undertaken, and that in itself has financial impacts to the council through the discovery of new assets and then having to depreciate those assets as well. So that impacts our operational bottom line. And of course, the ongoing problem with the resources available, contractors available, the cost of materials that impact our delivery, particularly in our operations and our capital works program. I just wanted to really mention our balance sheet. The balance sheet is very strong. We know that, we're this council, out of all of the 77 councils in Queensland, we sit within the first top 15 of being financially sustainable. And if we look at our balance sheet, we've got total assets of approximately $3.6 million. We have total equity of, total liabilities of $206 million, which gives us our total community equity of $3.4 billion. So quite strong in that area. And I just really, one other point that I wanted to make was around our rates and the recovery of our rates. So this council, 82% of our revenue comes from our rates and charges. Total overdue at 30 June was $7.6 million approximately, with only $2 million of that being further than 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. So I think as far as our rate recovery goes in the council, the team do a great job in keeping on top of that, which at the end of the day makes us even stronger as far as collecting our revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May, speaker against. Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Unanimously. So we've got some policies to adopt. Adoption of council policies 11.1.2. Policy number 5, which is procurement. Policy number 78, which is the public interest disclosure. Any questions around this? No questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of the policies? Councillor Jones moves. Councillor Mann seconds. Councillor Jones?
As is your
Any
worship.
speakers at all? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Makai Show Holiday. Applications for the Makai Show Holiday for 2023. So at that time we've got to decide that again as a council. It's recommended the council request a special holiday for the 2023 Makai Show on Thursday the 22nd of June, being the date advised by the Makai Show Association. Any questions? Assuming you'd like to move. Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. As per our yearly practice, it is our role to advise the Office of Industrial Relations of our intent to request a special show holiday for the 2023 Makai Show. As you know, Your Worship, the last 2 years have seen a resurgence of attendance numbers at the Makai Show and continued interest from locals in exhibitions of everything from cakes to cattle in an attempt to come away with that Grand Champion ribbon at the show. Councillors, consultation has taken place with Makai Show Association and the Pioneer Valley Show Association to align dates. And the proposed date of Thursday, the 22nd of June 2023 is suitable to all, and I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. The speakers against? Any other speakers? The motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We've got a few attendances at conferences to deal with right now. 11.1.4, councillor attendance at the Planning Institute of Australia conference on the 31st of August to the 2nd of September. And the motion, the officer's recommendation to approve Councillor May, Councillor Bonaventura, Councillor Green, Councillor Mann's attendance at the 2022 Planning Institute of Australia State Conference in Mackay from 31st of August to the 2nd of September. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Green moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Worship. So Mackay's been punching above its weight, attracting some fairly major conferences this year, and this is just another one. So with the Planning Institute of Australia conference. For councillors, this provides an excellent opportunity to learn and network with industry professionals and take the opportunity to spruik our own region at the same time. So all of us can name examples of poor planning outcomes and see where it affects the livability of our residents, but we can equally see that when planning is done well, it can really empower and connect our communities. At this conference, I'm particularly interested in hearing from Matt Carroll, the CEO of the Olympic Committee, and understanding the thinking around the planning for infrastructure for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, this conference is being held in Mackay, as Councillor Green said, and I also believe it holds great value for our council. With the growth now being experienced in our region at the moment, it is important that we are aware of the current best practices in planning for development. But I think it's also important for us to question the relevance of some planning frameworks to see if they fit our region. Our region of 7,600 square kilometres is very different to Cairns or Brisbane, and our ability to protect GQAL while allowing sensible reconfiguration of rural lots will be high on my list of discussion points. Your Worship, I attended the PIA conference in Mackay in my first term as a councillor, and I found it very, very rewarding. So much to offer. And in this year's event, it will be important for Councillors Mann, May, Green and myself to attend a variety of topics available. Councillors, I thank you for your support.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor attendance at the LGAQ conference in Cairns on the 17th to the 19th of October. And myself, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Townsend and Councillor Mann have indicated a willingness to attend. Any questions around this? Somebody like to move? Then Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try not to cough with my asthma. I just wanted to say that pleased that the councillors are able to attend our industry conference, the LGAQ conference. And in particular, there are a couple of points that I'm hoping that our councillors can come back with that certainly interest me, because I won't be going. So coastal councils is certainly an interest for me. The community assets versus community liability, I think it sounds really interesting, and I think would be great if we could bring some stuff back on that. And of course, every council in Queensland is suffering with the housing crisis, but us in particularly because of the situation that we are in. So raising the roof on housing prices would also be a great topic that I'd love to hear about. So I'm happy to move this motion. I look forward to the report at the end of the conference. Thank you, Worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.1.6, Councillor attendance at the Coastal Leaders Forum, 11th to the 12th of August in 2022. And Councillor Jones has indicated a desire to attend the Local Government Association of Queensland's Coastal Leaders Forum in 2022 in Gladstone. Any questions? Somebody like to move? Councillor Bonaventura moves, seconded by Councillor May. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. The LGAQ Coastal Leaders Forum is the first of its kind, bringing together leaders from Queensland's 41 coastal councils with other tiers of government and industry to advance the livability and resilience of our coastal regions. The theme for this inaugural event is Our Coast, Our Future, and will focus on the changing risk profiles of our coastal communities. Councillors will be able to discuss and share insights on how they are responding to new and emerging issues, including the threat of long-term environmental impact of climate change. Your Worship, Councillor Jones has always had a keen interest in our coastline and its communities, and I believe she will be best placed to bring back the ideas on how best we handle our 31 beaches that make up our coastline. A couple of topics that raised my interest were the coastal hazard adaptation strategies from a council's perspective, and the elected members and CEOs closed sessions with state and federal MPs. I believe the insights gained here will give us an understanding of the willingness of high levels of government to assist in maintaining our coastline. Happy to endorse Councillor Jones and look forward to her report.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. 11.1.7, Councillor attendance at the Organics Collection and Processing Tour. Sounds like fun. 6th to the 8th of September. And Councillor Hassan has put up a hand to go to this one. Are there any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Composting, come on, Your Worship. Get with it. So, there are so many people I know, Your Worship, that actually ask me all the time about when are we going to, as a council, go through this composting cycle to be able to provide this for our community. Two of the things will be that of interest to me that I know that Councillor Hassan will more than likely visit is a composting facility to get the the lowdown on how that all works, but also Nillumbik council presentation regarding food organic and garden organic sounds really interesting. So I look forward to her coming back and seeing what we can do within our council in relation to composting. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Green speaking for.
Seeking endorsement to attend the Disability Sports Australia conference recently, the point was raised that all councillors should be made aware of opportunities to attend learning events, and as the proxy of councils, as representative on Lgaq, I would have liked to have been afforded this invitation and I was not. The collection and processing of food and garden organics is of great personal interest to me. It was being introduced in the council that I was with in Muswellbrook in Alpha Hunter Valley. The output of greenhouse gases from food and garden organics is significant. It's probably our largest source in council. It's going to require significant change management within our community if we are to adopt a FOGO system, and also we have great challenges that are different to our cooler climate cousins, such as our climate and also our palm fronds. So I would have liked to have been there to ask a lot of the questions that I have, but I do look forward to Councillor Hassan bringing back a report and seeing where we go from there. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you.
Speaking for, obviously.
Yeah, so I just would like to clarify Councillor Green's point. So this is a study tour with very limited attendance. Was offered by the Lgaq. It's offered to initially to the executive members of the Lgaq committee, of which I'm one, and it, as I said, it's limited in numbers and offered to waste managers. I'm not sure who the Lgaq forwarded that to, but it was initially sent, as I said, to the executive and to the waste managers. There may be another one offered in future that Councillor Green may be able to attend, but in this case, that initial expression of interest due to the limited capacity for this tour was only offered to a limited number of people.
Yeah, I'm aware Councillor Hassan came through Lgaq, so and hopefully there'll be another opportunity. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the Council Attendance of Sustainable Economic Growth for Regional Australia, the conference of 1 and 2 September in Devonport, Tasmania. And the recommendation here is that Councillor Hassan, Councillor Englert and Councillor Seymour, who put their hand up to go, be endorsed. Any questions? No questions? Would somebody like to move? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, the conference SEGRA is something that over the years many councils have attended, and I know that there's been quite a lot that comes out of it. Again, there are a couple of things that I think are very pertinent to our organisation. People attraction and retention is something that we're always trying to do much better at in relation to staffing in our region, not just for us, but also for other businesses around Mackay. We talk a lot about tourism, and there's the visitor economy that's going to be discussed at SEGRA. So I think it's a topic that I'd certainly be able to like to hear about. And again, I've already mentioned housing in the previous one, but there's certainly a discussion around housing initiatives at this particular conference by Ian Lgaq, and I think that would be particularly good for us because of the situation we're in with housing. So I put forward this motion to be able to approve that these councillors attend. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Let's move on to our reports right now. Development Services under 11.2.1, the Development Services Monthly Review for June. And the Director is Crook today, so we've got an Acting Director. Thank you very much, Acting Director Cousins.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm pleased to present the Development Services Monthly Review on behalf of the Leader, who is unwell today. Some highlights from the month for Development Services include really strong results for our planning team. So 6 months into the 2022 calendar year, and development applications and the cumulative value of approved operational works continue to track higher than the previous 4 years. This is reflected in revenue from development application fees, which continue to exceed budget projections. Despite this, the team is managing to meet the majority of KPIs and are making a significant effort to provide responsive and timely development assessment services. displays have now been installed within vacant shopfront windows as part of a pilot project to activate vacant windows in the city centre. The project also provides an opportunity for local makers and creatives to market their wares, with passerbys also able to purchase goods using the interactive QR codes available. Positive feedback has already been received from nearby businesses, and it's certainly brightening the streetscape through the city. A long arm excavator was used to remove aquatic weeds from the channels in the lagoons at the Botanic Gardens during June. This joint effort between Botanic Gardens and pest management staff has resulted in the lagoons looking great at the moment. A number of Invest Makai events and conference attraction programs supported events were held in June, being our peak event season, including the BMA Marina Run, the Oceana Athletics Championships, Aussie Gold Cheer and Dance-Off, and the Rocky Trail Academy and Superflow events. Round 2 of the Small Business Mentoring Program is also underway as part of the overall Piney Valley Mountain Bike Project. 10 businesses are participating in the current round of the program, which will run until July 2022. Visitation at the Serena Sugar Shed in June 2022 was 39% higher than in June 2021, as we start to see some recovery happen this year, reaching 3,611 visitors. This month's figures close out a strong year for the facility, with ticket sales, retail and total revenue all exceeding financial year targets. With that, I'd like to present this report to Council for consideration, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Acting Director. Are there questions for the Acting Director? No questions. You got off lightly today. Thank you very much. So we'd like to move the adoption of the report. Councillor Englert moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Englert.
I could have had some fun with the Acting Director. I know she's responsible for feedback on the e-scooters. I possibly had a question, but I'm going to speak about that a little bit later. Your Worship, construction of the first stage of 3 Riverside Revitalisation project is underway. The concrete's down. That looks like potentially a really good place for our community to have a space close to the river, as we've been attempting to do for a couple of decades now. Recreational fishing strategy, Hooked on Makai website refresh has now been tested and final changes are being made to the site. Will go live. It should be live by now, and the Rockhampton Regional Council, Makai Regional Council, Economic Development teams have been meeting to finalise the terms with reference to the Barra Highway, which should be a really good tourism opportunity for people to visit regional towns on their way up north. The Serena Sugar Shed is a good month, significantly exceeding its June 21 results, with ticket sales up 17%, retails up 39%, and total revenue at 32%. Request for quotes on the recreational vehicle strategy closed on the 14th of June. We look forward to seeing how that pans out. And e-scooters, as you know, Your Worship, one of the individuals that was really keen to see them in the region. I'm encouraged by the amount of mums and dads and kids, and particularly the opportunity for young people to move around our region and connect with each other more so than they've ever had the ability to do before, on mum or dad's credit card or their own if they've so got. But so it's been, in my view, a very positive outcome for the community. I've even seen business people with their briefcases going to conference on it. I'm dismayed at the lack of common sense around where we are sometimes parking these things. I suppose the downside so far is that people are just leaving them parked in the middle of the footpath, and that's not very helpful to people who may be using a wheelchair or some other means that requires the whole footpath. So we've had chats to the director, and we're looking forward to some more work with the private company that's running the e-scooters to work together to get people, and through this space as well, get people to think about where they're parking them. They're a really great resource to the community. Let's not ruin it or have it rolled back because we can't do the right thing by it. And finally, Your Worship, just in the month of August, Amputee Golf Open. This was discussed at Councillor, what's our committee? What's our committee? The Invest Makai committee, as not only was the return on investment quite good, it was an opportunity for all abilities to happen in our region, supporting those. We've got, so that's on the 5th of August, 6th of August, Be Social Music Festival, and 19th to 22nd, North Queensland Rock and Country Music Festival. I'll try to get to remember which committees I'm on in future, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor England. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Green speaking for.
Just following on from the Director's comments about the vacant window activation project, I would really like to congratulate the Mackay City and Waterfront team for such an incredible initiative and a job well done. But you couldn't move in Mackay last week without bumping into someone from the mining and METS industry, and it was wonderful to have the Queensland Mining and Engineering exhibition back, and the vibe was fantastic, and the Mackay City was just pumping. Congratulations to everyone who pulled this massive event together, and a shout out to Council's Economic Development team for being an integral part of the Greater Whitsunday METS Innovation Lounge display, which I think was one of the best there at QME. And I must mention Brent from Economic Development and Betty from Serena Sugar Shed for their fabulous effort making 197 cocktails featuring the Serena Sugar Shed rum in an hour at the QME cocktail networking function. I heard it was superb. And finally, a highlight for me was attending the QME Breakfast Sessions, a companion program organised and held at the Resources Centre of Excellence. The quality of high-profile speakers and the panel discussions were well worth the early starts, and again showcase what a great hub for connection and idea sharing the Resources Centre of Excellence has become for the Mackay region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Bella.
I could well have spoken on this on the next report as well, but I'd like to get down to the nitty gritty on a couple of things. When you look at our near misses, our injuries to staff and damage to equipment, it always brings to mind, and I've spoken on this before, the fact that, and we have received any number of customer requests regarding the fact that they think we're behind on mowing and maintenance and whatever, and yes, I'll admit we are. However, as I said, our staff, we are terribly short-staffed. It's weather like we probably don't see, one decade to the next. And I know from a farming point of view, all of our procedures, both with cattle and cane, have had to change because of the weather. It's made things problematic, to say the least. And I do empathise with our staff at, the difficulties they face, and to be honest, the expectations upon them. And I'm not necessarily saying the expectations we place upon them, but the expectations that they're aware of, that the general public is placing upon them. They'd have to be, cast of stone to not appreciate that people are expecting great things from them. And indeed, they place expectations on themselves. So at this point, all I'd say to them is do what you can do. Don't try and overdo things. We will get there. And I just ask people to just be aware of the pressure they're under. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bella. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. A couple of things I'd like to pull out of the report. The first one is the tender for the Northern Beaches Community Hub Stage 1A, which is the outdoor area. It's great to see that tender's in and being evaluated. It's a very exciting time that we're getting closer to putting a shovel in the ground out at the Northern Beaches, so that is fantastic. The other part that I wanted to highlight out of the report was the staging of the beach horse races between the 10th and 12th of June. As we know, this particular event has been in abeyance for a couple of years, and it's been a little controversy, if you like, through previous stagings of the event. But I have to say, between Sound Australia and Mackay Isaac Tourism, as the proponents of staging the event, did a fantastic job. For those that attended the event, there was about 2,000 people in attendance, and there was a whole range of sections where you could buy a ticket to, whatever your choice was of that. The food was great on the day, the entertainment was great. I believe the crowd was very well behaved, and with that, this sees the resurgence of a very unique event for the Mackay region, so it's great to see, and it's good to see it's also reported there's interest in 2023, which is fantastic. So to Mackay Tourism, and if Councillor Inglet can take our congratulations back to them as our representative there, and Sound Australia, they did a fantastic job. But they also did that in conjunction with our economic development team, who are supporting behind the scenes all the time, so hats off to them as well.
Thanks, Councillor May. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Start the first of our ECI reports for June 2022. Transport and Drainage. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just starting with safety, so there were 11 incidents for the month, which is the highest we've had for about the last 5 months. And a number of those were injuries to staff, hitting objects or asset damage. So overall fees for civil ops, there was 81 days lost and 5 LTIs for the year to date. As alluded to by Councillor Bell, it's been a bit of a challenge in the last sort of periods with the wet weather and the number of vacancies and leave that we're actually witnessing. So staff are still endeavouring to do as the important things that they can. You'll see that we had 304 potholes in June, which is a very high number given the unseasonal wet weather we actually had. Overall, the budgets are probably tracking a little bit ahead where we thought they would be, but as indicated by the acting CEO, there's still some accounts to be accounted for. So we expect we'll be reasonably close to the budget, but over as we anticipated. Just on the asset management front, so obviously concentrating on WIP and trying to get that in sorted out as much as we can, leading in the end of the financial year. And you'll note that we've got a asset management review being done at present, so I expect that back in mid-August and potentially being able to brief council on the outcomes of that towards the end of the month. Otherwise, happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? Councillor Mann.
Just in terms of safety, there was the note about the Telstra box hidden in grass that was hit, and also a water meter. I'm just wondering if there's any way to mark those things so it doesn't keep happening.
Director.
Yeah, through your worship, very good question. I mean, it's a balance, obviously, depending on where we are with the grass growth. So normally, if it's low enough, we would expect staff to get out there, and it depends if the operator's there and is familiar. So we have had a bit of a look about trying to map those things, and certainly water meters in the case of this one, we did identify and relocate it a bit closer to the boundary because it was probably wasn't located in the appropriate place. So it's something we're consciously still working on and trying to obviously minimise any damage we do when we do that.
Further questions? Councillor Seymour.
Question here. While digging holes for fence posts, exposed optic fibre cable, didn't they use dial before you dig, or was it
good question.
Overlooked?
Can you answer that, Director?
Again, good question. I can't answer. The expectation would be for any planned work to certainly do access dial before you dig, but I can't put my hand on my heart and say they did that in this case, so I have to follow that up and check.
Okay. Thanks, Director. Further questions? Any further questions for the Director? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor England. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. Following on from the Director, it has been a massive month for transport and drainage in terms of work orders for pothole repairs alone. And on top of that, there was work orders for another 15 trops of maintenance. So it just shows, I guess, the breadth of services that particular program handles, and shows how much experience is needed in that team as well. And again, absenteeism continues to impact a lot of areas of council, but particularly this area. I note that the Director did say there's has been a review of open drainage maintenance led to the reorganisation and combination of resources into one team, and I see that as a good thing as well. It's utilising what we've got there, but it just makes more sense, and I think if we keep challenging ourselves as a council to look at those opportunities, I think we're a lot better off. It also allows for vacancies to be covered for whatever reason, and illness throughout the team, so I think it's a really good thing. The asset management program is focused on work in progress and donated assets, which is continuing to bring down the outstanding WIP balance, and we know that's a good thing as well. And it's been a focus of this council, so I'm really pleased to see that. I would like to thank the Director for the level of information the report contains, and also, while safety, there were some incidences in safety for the month, there was no more lost time to injury, so it does show that staff are trying to focus on safety as well.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. PCI report on waste services in June 2022. Director.
Thank you, Worship. Again, on safety, so there was actually 7 incidents, which is highest we've had for the last 12 months, all resulting either in contractor or customers. So something we're still trying to keep vigilant on. But pleasing to report there's been no LTIs within that waste program, even though it's a small program for the last 5 years. The budget for waste, again, showing higher than anticipated revenue for year to date, and we'll come back more closer to the budget with the final accruals coming in period 13. Hogan pocket tonnages are up, so it just seems to be a variance there that's hard to get a handle on, but up and down given each month. We had a lot higher green waste tonnages come through, again associated with the wet weather, so 617 tonnes processed, which is a lot compared to the previous time last year. Dump vouchers are still out for the current period, but just recognising that the redemption value for the year was about 580,000, so a significant number obviously in vouchers that have been redeemed during the period. And just to highlight, there's been a significant increase shown in the graph in relation to tonnages gone to landfill from the MRF. And just a little background, we didn't probably articulate that well enough in the report. And that's really processing of glass material that's bypassed. So where we have labels and that on the MRF, it gets put into a bypass stockpile. And I've only just done a process of about 1,000 tonnes of that in June. So as a consequence, there's been a lot more tonnages gone to landfill as a result of that one-off project. Otherwise, happy to take any questions.
Questions? Councillor Bella?
I have a bit of a Dorothy Dixer for the director. We've had over the last any number of months conversations about batteries being left in our waste and causing fires. Could the director please outline the correct manner of disposing of gas bottles for members of the community?
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'd probably have to take that on notice on where you do it, but it's certainly not a correct disposal method to put it in any of your bins. So most of the gas bottles these times can obviously be taken back and replaced and brought back if they're barbecues, depending on the type. But yeah, if they don't know, we can probably provide some further advice. I just don't have that at hand at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Bella,
just a comment on that answer. I would appreciate if we could do something on that, for the simple fact that gas bottles aren't actually accepted by scrap metal merchants either. So they're somewhat limited as to, if someone is caught with one of those, if we don't have a clear method of disposing of them, they could end up potentially becoming illegal dumping, and that's the sort of thing you don't want to all of a sudden discover when we have a fire in some of our bushland.
Councillor Bella? Councillor May?
Just a question in regards to our community service obligations and the fee waivers. So we see there that we're well under budget, which is great, but there's been non-activity in some of those particular organisations, and I'm just wondering whether, given it's a new financial year, do we actually go back and review those fee waivers and maybe make adjustments?
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, very good question again, Councillor. Yeah, so we normally do a reconciliation end of the year, and obviously review that in relation to those businesses, make sure they're still operating, they still have that need, or if any other businesses are coming on board and apply for that. So we would then do that assessment on what the actual allocation is for the year as a result of that.
Thanks.
Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. While there were no lost time injuries this month, or indeed any incidents involving council staff, it was disappointing to read about 7 incidents involving non-staff members. And again, as Councillor Bella and the Director alluded to, 3 of those involved gas bottles, again going through our waste facility. I don't know what the answer is. I know Council's certainly been doing social media and media on this issue, and just asking people just to be very careful around that site. Some of the incidents that were reported was someone threw a piece of timber into the tip, it bounced off a wire and came back and hit them in the face. The gas bottles being dumped, so these are all really easy things to avoid if people just take care and are aware of their surroundings, but just don't put gas bottles in your rubbish bins. And I'm sure the Director will come back with some further information. I know they can be returned to the place of purchase. Even if you're not purchasing another one, you can take your gas bottle back to the service stations or collection points. On a better note, Council's community educators have been really busy this month, and it's really good to see that the first of our material recovery facility tours for 2022 had taken place during June. These tours are a really, really interesting and a very visual way for children and members of the community to see what happens to the items that they put in their recycle bin, and the school that attended is a school that goes through our War on Waste program. June also saw the War on Waste audits conducted at Slade Point School. Addresses to a school assembly regarding recycle was given to 300 students at West Mackay School, and a composting and worm farm workshop held at Makai Community Gardens, which was attended by 33 people. So our community educators have been very busy during June. 196 tonnes of material was processed through the incredible tip shop, and this is a fantastic facility in our community, and is a really great way of reusing and recycling products back to the community. I went out there to visit myself this month, and somebody actually put in a Rolex watch. A little dubious as to whether that was real or not. I'm guessing after reading the instruction manual that came with it, which was full of spelling mistakes, that maybe it wasn't. But you know, pick yourself up a bargain and get a Rolex. Go to the tip shop.
Wasn't real, I checked.
There was also great wine racks, which unfortunately I couldn't fit in my house. So I'd like to finish the month on a more positive note to let you know that Lgaq met in Yeppoon on the 16th and 17th of June. And while we were there, the Livingston Shire Council, who were our hosts, arranged for us to plant some trees along their esplanade. That was in recognition of Lgaq's recent incorporation. So all of the members of Lgaq and our waste service managers got to plant some trees there. They also organised a really lovely plaque there, so that'll be there just in recognition of Lgaq being there. And it was the first time that Lgaq had met in the Livingston Shire Council region. So I'd just like to pass on thanks to Councillor Andrea Friend and Livingston Council for that opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to raise one point, but great report from the Director, and I thank the Director and Councillor Hassan for their overview. But the thing that stuck out for me really was the incredible tip shop. The volunteers that are there all the time, you know, a lot of people don't probably know that these people that are there volunteering. 243 hours for the month of June, doing the drop-offs and the sorting back into the tip shop, and that's a total of 2,170 hours for the year. Just remembering, they are volunteers, they give their time freely, and they're doing this so that this service to our community continues, and it's a great success. So, yeah, just wanted to raise that one. Thank you,
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. The ECI report for June 2022 on water.
Thank you, Worship, again. Again, highlighting safety. So there was 3 incidents for the month, but really pleasing to see that in the water area has now been 2 years LTI-free, which is a great effort given the high-risk activities they perform. Expenditure on the budget is expected to be in line with close to the budget when we have the accruals come in for water and sewage, noting that there is obviously that payment of the loans now, which when you take that out, we should be okay. There's been an increased focus just around management of our AMR devices, so they're the devices that sit on your water meter that give us the data. So we are coming to the conclusion of the life of those AMRs, so a bit of a concentrated program started in June, which will roll over in 22-23 just to make sure that they're all updated and we're getting good data coming back through and able to let our customers know when they have a leak. You will see that based on my H2O registration, we had a drop for the month, so that's that change of ownership issue. So we're still having a look at that, how we can obviously make sure that when someone purchases a new house, that they can obviously get the opportunity to sign up to My H2O and get the data, but we actually dropped 60 for the month. Water consumption was slightly up, which is normal for this time of year as we get into that sort of drier period with less rain. We see increasing the outdoor water usage. A total of 451 work requests were completed for the month. So again, that's been a good effort in relation to you know, the resources that we have, and just the Facebook engagement stuff around the Southern Rise main repair. There's really good outcome there in the community feedback that we received around that. Otherwise, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions from the Director, Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in relation to the replacement of the AMRs, like Your Worship, I was here when we did install or vote to install those, and we were told 10-year lifespan out of those batteries. Well, you're right, it's getting to that point. The question is, have we had many failures, or what are we finding? Are they still reading reasonably well?
Director.
Yeah, it's a good question, Your Worship. There's probably a number that we see either have a signal issue, but sometimes we're trying to work out whether that's the AMR device, whether there's some other interference, or whether there was vacancies in the properties when you were seeing no reading. So We've now moved away from, I suppose, those plug-in devices. The new water meter replacements are a fully integrated meter, and they're expected to actually get a longer life on the battery in relation to that of 15 years. So nominally for a domestic sort of household, we sort of turn or replace a water meter around 10 years depending on flow. So there's certainly a little bit of work I think in the next sort of 12 to 18 months where we'll be doing a lot of replacements just to make sure we don't have any of those data integrity issues, but certainly are starting to see a few more issues coming from those devices as they get close to the end of their life.
Very good.
Follow up
Councillor
quickly. So as we replace them, we're replacing the whole meter, not just the push-in unit?
Yeah, primarily, depending on the meter age. So sometimes you might have one of those devices fail for a reason, but if we're replacing the meter, it's a fully integrated meter now without the local device. So primarily that's the activity to go forward. We will probably still have a few depending on where they sit and what the issue are, or if the meter's not due to be replaced, but we will still replace those devices directly.
Thank you, Worship.
Councillor May.
Just one question in relation to the wastewater compliance. And I read in the report there was 2 breaches or 2 compliant issues. And I read that the Morani water recycling facility is still under the control of the construction contractor. Is there any estimate of time as to when council is going to take control of that asset?
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. That's a very good question, Council. Obviously, that contract's gone way longer than anticipated. Obviously, the plan is built. It's really just the process proving period. So they were in that. They had an issue there, so that's reset. So potentially, if they can get through a 35-day process proving, that plant will revert back to council. But there are still a number of issues that probably have to be rectified before that can occur. So I wish I could give you a date, councillor, but it's like how long's a piece of string for us at the moment. So hopefully we can get that plant over to us and operating as soon as we can, but we're probably waiting on the contractor to apply for it before we do that.
Can I just add
Second
another
question,
question?
Councillor May.
Is there any ongoing cost to council through, given that whole process? Like, is there any ramifications for us as far as cost-wise in the running of that plant?
Again, through your question, not over and above that would normally occur. So normal costs around power and that would come back to us. So there's probably a little bit less cost, but yeah. So at the moment, we're just waiting on the contract to be able to meet the process proving and then hand it back to council to operate. We're ready to take it on.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? No further questions. Would somebody like to move the reports on option? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Anglett. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship.
Our water services team, I really feel, Your Worship, just get on with the job. As the Director said, no lost time injuries again. There's very rarely incidents reported in this, and for such a massive team with such a huge amount of work, usually in high-risk areas, it's really, really always good to hear that this team just get on with the job and very rarely report any injuries. So given the quiet way that these people do go about their job, it was really great to see such high Facebook engagement with over 112,000 post impressions received during the period. The majority of those, as the Director mentioned, were in response to the series of posts for the Southern Rising Main repair. This was a massive undertaking, which has been mentioned before, where the contractors originally engaged to do the job couldn't complete it, and council staff came in, worked together across teams to get that job done. So they really needed to enlist the community support during that time to reduce the impact on the network during that crucial repair period. So the post on the Sunday night, the 5th of June, advising everyone to reduce their water usage for a second night, received 38,418 post impressions and over 2,000 views of the time-lapse video that was recorded of that project. So I just wanted to congratulate the team, first of all, on the actual project. It really is a credit to everybody that worked on it. And I just say to everybody, if you haven't watched this video for a rising main repair, which doesn't sound overly glamorous, it was a massive undertaking. It's a really, really interesting video to watch. As I said, our water services team are extremely busy and they carry out an impressive amount of work, amount of testing every month. So constant testing is undertaken to ensure that we continue to have some of the best drinking water in the world. We think the best, but they say some of the best. Our trade waste is assessed and monitored, wastewater testing is performed, plumbing applications are processed, and water leaks detected and reported back to customers. So massive amount of work undertaken each month, and all of this is done with the absolute best possible customer service focus and a high level of positive feedback from the community. So great work to the team.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Seymour speaking for.
Yes, I'm a bit of a water wiser myself, but there's still a substantial amount of water leaks in the council itself. And the biggest thing I've said to you is when people sell their houses, they're hardly registered. So there's 60 this month registered. But I was speaking to a plumber the other day, and the biggest asset about it's been on my H2O is that you get notifications once a week when you're over 10 litres an hour, and then if you're not registered, you only get notifications once a month. And this plumber was telling me that he went to a job the other day where first notification went out in May, the second notification went out in June. So when he went to rectify the problem, he's found that the main had dislodged through expansion away from the house. And at the end of it, when he dug the yard up, the ground was green, so which meant the water leak had been there for a substantial time. So at the end of the day, he was losing 150 litres an hour through this one leak. So yeah, people out there who aren't registered, it pays you to register because it is the way the economy is these days. It's a big saving if you have got to pay that extra water bill. So.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Move on to Org Services, the report for June under 11.4.1. Director.
Your Worship, safety continues to be a focus of the department with no LTIs being recorded for the past 4 months. Some highlights from the department for the month include information services successfully migrated over 130 servers to the cloud environment with minimal to no interruptions to the business. This enabled over 90 servers to be decommissioned through optimisation and transition to vendor as a service environments. The end user experience was not impacted, so well done to that team. Property services were involved in ensuring the Makai Stadium and Junior Rugby League grounds are in optimal condition for the running of the Complimentary Shield Parliament. The grounds stood up well to the heavy use and showcased Mackay's sporting assets to people from all over Queensland. June saw our people and culture team deliver a training program on our 2022 determination to 224 leaders and interested employees across the organisation. 15 sessions were presented over a 2-week period. This will provide for increased knowledge and understanding of the correct application of the agreed position for employee pay and benefits. Despite some challenges with staffing levels, the customer service team continued to record high customer satisfaction scores, with 96% of customers satisfied with the service provided. Our local spend for the year ended at 64%, meaning that approximately 2/3 of our total procurement spend was with local businesses. This excluded our significant wages bills that we pay to our staff. June also saw the 22-23 budget and operational plan successfully adopted by Council. These, together with our other internal planning documents, including the organisational strategy, directorate plans and program plans, form the framework for our decision-making and plans for the current financial year. And finally, the Oceana Athletics Championships were held at the Mark during June, resulting in a significant increase in attendance at our athletic centre. Our very own Manager of Financial Services, Justin Rule, competed in the 5,000 metres, which he ran first, the 3,000 metre steeplechase and the 1,500 metre run. So, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Just before we ask for questions, managed to connect with Councillor Townsend. Councillor Townsend, can you hear us?
Morning, everybody.
Right, we can hear you and see you, Councillor Townsend. Thank you. We're just wanting to make sure that the connection is fine. So we'll note that Councillor Townsend has joined the meeting via Teams. Questions for the Director? Councillor Mann.
So I just want to confirm in safety, it says 62 safety interactions. It seems a lot for the month, so I just want to confirm that that is the correct figure.
Director.
Yes, unfortunately, a lot of the people leave it to the last minute, so yeah.
Okay. And I do have one more. Yeah, I'm just going to find it. So Shared services, in terms of shared services KPIs, first contact resolution was affected by the customer service team being required to forward payment arrangements to pensioners, to billing services as they were overdue. Just wondered what caused the payment arrangements to be overdue.
Okay, Director.
No, so customer service can deal with payment arrangements prior to the rates becoming due. Pensioner rates are due in the middle of June, so once the rates become overdue, only the billing services teams can deal with them because they're now overdue and not prior to the due date.
Further questions for the Director? No further questions for the Director? Thank you very much, Director. Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 293, I note that we have 157 vacancies within our organisation, and that's another 10 increase on the previous month. We've said it before, COVID in so many ways impacts our lives and the businesses within the region, not to mention that the mines are also firing up again and we have a skills shortage as a result. If there is any member of the public out there listening today, please tell your friends that are looking for work to apply for the vacancies. Also on page 296, Your Worship, I wanted to also give a really big shout out to our IT services. It's something to celebrate when you do a survey within your area and get an overall rating of 99%. So I just want to say well done to the Director and the team, and I know just recently, even as of yesterday, I'd had some recent interactions myself with the IT service desk, and I can honestly say that they are real troopers in helping everyone out within our organisation. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. All right, that's the reports. Let's move on. 11.4.2, the new lease to the mobile crushing proprietary limited. So this is just a request for a lease. Are there questions around this? No questions? Somebody like to move the officer's recommendation be adopted? Councillor Englert moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Englert.
Thank you, Worship. This lease is over land of which council is the custodian for. It's the approval for a new lease of sand storage purposes. Sorry, it's not new. It's an extension for 3 years at $19,500 per year. As I said, council is the trustee of the land, and the sand extraction activities are licensed by the state government. This is just a continuation for Mobile Crushing Proprietary Limited for a period of 3 years.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Englert. Speaker against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Receipt of petitions on agenda item 12.1, the petition for mowing in the region. Are there questions around this? No questions around this? Would somebody like to move that we receive this petition? Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. There's no debate on this, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. The petition on Camilleri Street Skate Park public artwork. Are there questions around this? No questions around this? Somebody like to move that the petition be received and referred? Councillor Green moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, now we'll move on to the notified motions on this agenda. 14.1 is the correct spelling of the McCarthy Street papers. Oh, did I miss one? I'm getting ahead of that.
13.1.
13.1. I've got a marker on. There you go.
That's one.
All right. No, it's not there. Okay, so where are we at, Pam? 13.1. Contract on 54 for the Pioneer Valley Culvert Replacement Works. The contract recommendation is for Pentagon Proprietary Limited with a lump sum and schedule of rates under the tender price of $1.132 million. Other questions? Councillor May.
Just one question. Has Pentagon done work for council before? Yep.
Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine, I just
Further questions?
wasn't sure.
No further questions? Would somebody like to move the reports of adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. This tender is part of the Rural Culvert Replacement Program. And after inspection of some culverts, obviously there's some been identified as damaged and at the end of their life. These replacements are in 3 locations. 2 of them are actually along Owens Creek Loop Road and 1 is in Morani. As part of this process, there'll be some community engagement, some traffic management and some safety risks considered. But what was most interesting to me, obviously being a fisho person, is that the contractor must make sure that they produce an environmental management plan in association with the works undertaken in the waterway, and I'm glad to see that council will also be working closely with the contractor to make sure that all of this is undertaken. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to agenda item 14, the consideration of notified motions. 14.1 is the correct spelling of McCarthy Street, Hay Point, to McCarthy Street. We have a speaker to this. Glenn McCarthy is here with us today. So the rules of engagement, sir, we have 3 minutes. This is not a debate with council, so we're happy to listen to your presentation to council for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's over to you.
Thank you. I'd just like to read what I've written here. This, the street naming of at Half Tide, not Hay Point, is spelled incorrect. It's MC. It should be MAC. That's after my grandfather. Norfolk Norman McCarthy moved from Mount Morgan in 1926. Norfolk, his wife and 2 children moved to McEwan's Beach, living in the tent for 2 years, so as to help his brother operate a fish trap. Norfolk worked in the railway goods yard as a labourer and also worked in the building of Makai grandstand and showgrounds. Norfolk Norman McCarthy in the mid-1940s squatted on Crown land, living in a tin hut as a beachcomber. Using his ability as a hunter and gatherer to raise money to survive. Norfolk was the first permanent resident to live at Half Tide. He was referred to as Mac, Norrie, the caretaker, the boss, and to the young ones he was Bob. Norwich Creek was also named after him. Norfolk sold shellgrit, driftwood, painted coral, fresh milk from his own 2 cows, eggs from his own poultry, meat domestic and wild, eggs of the wild commercial businesses in Mackay. Norfolk also ran a self-supporting flock of commercial turkeys at Christmas. From the year 1612 to 1855 to 2022, I could only find the McCarthy name spelled wrong 2 times. One being in a street at Half Tide, and the other on the former board, participating to the longest serving harbour master, E.R.M. McCarthy. Changes to street names and places in the Mackay area. Sydney Street, spelling. Collingsby, spelling. Goldsmith Street to Scott Street. South Milton Street to Milton Street. Boundary Road to East Boundary Road. Boundary Road to Boundary East. And Farrelly Lane to Farrelly Road. That's been the changes, so I'm hoping to get McCarthy's name correctly spelled Half Tide. And as I'm the last MHC living, it's up to me to try and get it. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. Very well, spot on time too, that's well done. You were spot on time, that was well done, thank you. Councillor Bonaventura has put this notified motion to council. Councillor Bonaventura, do you wish to move?
Happy to move.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Worship. Firstly, I'd like to start by thanking Mr. McCarthy for giving us the background and doing most of the work for me. I'd just like to put up the photo of his, what was that? Edward Daniel McCarthy. Great grandfather. And I can still see the family resemblance, so we know we've got the right man. So I'll get straight down to the point. This is about rectifying an obvious error that occurred many, many years ago. And under Section 60, Control of Roads in the Local Government Act, Council has the ability to name and number roads in accordance with our naming of infrastructure and assets policy. It also states Council may consider renaming, and in this case, a street, if we found the information submitted in the naming was incorrect. To rectify this error, 38 properties on McCarthy Street Half-Tide would need to add an extra letter in their address. And yes, it would be a once-off inconvenience to the resident, but no different to any time any of us change our address. Councillors, I'm often asked about the origin of road names, and our GIS staff have pages and pages of history on the background of why a road has a certain name. And I think it's important that anyone researching the name McCarthy will find the correct details on its naming. In reading the report, there is sufficient evidence to suggest that the name was spelt incorrectly when originally named. And supporting this motion will allow the consultation with property owners and residents of McCarthy Street to be undertaken and a report be presented to Council. The naming of streets by using family names of significance is something I believe we all support. And in doing so, it is important we get it right. I believe it's time we honour Norfolk Norman McCarthy and commence a process to correct this mistake. Councillors, I ask for your support.
Thanks, Councillor Bowman. You're a speaker against? Are there any other speakers? The officer's recommendation supports this motion, which is now not a notified motion, becomes a motion of council. It's been moved and seconded. And the officer's recommendation is the council agrees in principle to renaming McCarthy Street Hay Point to McCarthy Street with an MAC, to correct the spelling of the street after the founding Hay Point resident Norfolk Norman McCarthy, subject to the outcome of consultation with the impacted property owners in the area and residents of McCarthy Street in line with the council's naming of infrastructure assets policy, and further that a subsequent report be presented to council following this consultation. Been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. You're a little bit delayed there, Councillor Townsend, but you are voting for, I take it.
It was, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks, Glenn. Excuse me, sir. You need to be quiet, so thank you. Okay. Let's move on. The next notified motion is the repeal of public art decision on the Camilleri Street skate park. We have a number of speakers to this. First is Tonya Vinisa. Sorry.
Tony and Vinside. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Tony. And so the rules of engagement, as I said, are 3 minutes. It's not a public debate. So we're here to listen to you and your presentation for the next 3 minutes. Tony, thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse my phone instead of a piece of paper. I wasn't very organised this morning. However this community art came about, it's community art. It's been paid for by the community. It's wanted by the community, and the councillors here are representatives of the community and need to reflect community attitudes. A lot of everyday people from the community gave their hard-earned coin to that original fundraiser. And your decision has also said that it is basically not of value either. So their money went in and it's gone. Bad luck for decision majority of councillors. I went down to the isolated little skate. I'm from Slade Point. I went down to the skate park when I saw what was happening. Went to have a look, and first thing I thought, as a parent and grandparent aunt, I thought that the planning, thoughtful planning there was not really good, but that's another issue. But I asked a number of kids and their parents what they thought of the artwork. They all loved it. It was not something that I was thinking was wonderful, but everybody loved it. No one had a problem. No one had a problem. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. Then over 1,000 people have taken time to sign a petition. Mackay's quite an apathetic community. If you're trying to get anything afoot, it doesn't happen. More than 1,000 people have done that. I've spoken to a lot of people in the community, something I do quite regularly. I have not heard one negative comment, no negative feedback, other than what has really taken place in this room for various reasons, but that is all I have heard as a community member. No one else has objected to that artwork being there. No one else has started a petition, gone to the media, jumped on social media and said, this is offensive, I want it gone. No one has done that, other than maybe people in this room. Just to get a bit of perspective on setting a precedent, no one's gone to the entertainment centre and put some random mural. This is an isolated little skate park for a limited amount of people are going to use it. I don't know that there's a massive negative impact on that little bit of artwork, because the rest of the community likes it there. And I think if we take it away, despite all the people wanting it, it's basically rendering everyone voiceless. There's 7 voices here who didn't want it, but there's so many who do. And I think we need to reflect that. As mentioned with the gentleman who did the prayer when we first started, it seems to me the world has gone mad. God, it really has. Our world has gone mad. And now we're trying a new way, and expectations, we'd be a little kinder, a little more patient, a little more understanding. And I would like to see that I'm a bit nervous. I would like to see that represented in the people who represent us, which is you guys. You're elected to represent us.
Thank you, Ms. Pencio. You've gone well over 3 minutes.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Anyway, one sentence. The leadership
That's
needs
it.
to start in the room. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you.
I
That's
really
okay,
thought
that's
I'd
fine.
timed it.
That's my job. That's my job.
Good deal.
So, Bessie Hayes.
Yes, Commissioner.
First, I'd like to thank Council for the opportunity to attend today's meeting and to speak to the Deputy Mayor's motion. In 1998, I moved with my family to Burke Street, and Blacks Beach was my backyard. Countless hours spent walking the miles down to Blacks Beach Park and scaling the hillside long before a certain set of stairs was a fitness attraction. Dolphins Football Club was my first Makai junior sporting club, and whilst eventually moving to Urbana, I finished my schooling in Makai, and now, after a 13-year hiatus, I have returned as a rate-paying member of the Northern Beaches community, with my boys growing up in a house built on the once agricultural land their mother passed daily on the commute to school. I do not and have never known Will Baker. I do not know his family. I have not met the community members involved in the GoFundMe campaign that funded this public artwork project. Who I am is a constituent of the Mackay Regional Council who has a firm belief that one must not complain vociferously about the actions of those who offer themselves in service if unprepared to be informed and conscious of the work and processes they maintain. So today I stand as a Northern Beaches resident and urge the Council to reconsider their objection to retrospective approval for community artwork at Camilleri Street Skate Park against the officer's recommendation. I know there are a number of others who have proffered their support via correspondence, and that receipt of my petition has been acknowledged. I am well aware and accept the limitation of change.org petitions in affirming whether the signees do indeed represent the community to which the petition speaks, but I have spent countless hours vetting those respondents, with approximately 900 of the 1,200 belonging to people with vested interest in the retrospective approval of this art. In a submission, the member for Sunday, encompassing the Northern Beaches, notes the support of relevant community organisations and addresses the genuine miscommunication of approvals, commencement and halting of works, and retrospective of completion of council application process, ultimately supported by the Visual Arts Advisory Committee. She also notes the urgent nature of the retrospective approval being given due to the works currently remaining unfinished and exposed to the elements. I'd like to take the opportunity, and I appreciate the dated, to refer to Council's graffiti deterring initiative in 2010 that involved commissioning graffiti artists to produce professional graffiti art at Chemist Park, and to Councillor Bonaventura's support of a state government initiative in 2013 in which he referenced the approximate $70,000 annual cost incurred by Mackay Regional Council in graffiti removal. Here in 2022, we have a community-funded and resourced appropriate mural that is fit for purpose of Council's graffiti management policy prevention strategy. Setting aside the economic advantage to the MRC, myself, the signees of the petition, and the Northern Beaches community implore Council to consider the importance of this artwork commissioned by and for our vulnerable youth and the space it provides for them to gather, reflect and support each other in a constructive and communally beneficial manner. This council has the opportunity to demonstrate its passion for and support of all members of the community in which it serves in retrospectively approving public artwork at Camilleri Street Skate Park. Thank you.
You've done that well, Ms Hayes, right on, thank you. And Sonia Scable.
Okay, I'd like to speak in reference to the Camilleri Street Park from the point of view, the perspective of the youth in the Northern Beaches. Now, my business exists in the community solely for the purpose of connection and mental health support. And in this past week since this was passed, I've had so many connections where I've had to sit out at the Camilleri Street Park and speak to young people and families about the motion that was passed by council to remove the artwork. The artwork connects the youth to that facility. That facility provides the youth of that area who are under considerable mental health stress due to things such as homelessness, drugs, family breakdown, all those sorts of things. That park provides connection in their community. They feel they have some sort of control over some part of their life, being connected to their friends, other youth, and the service that park provides. The concern that I have, and I do not know Will Baker, I do not know his family or any of these other people speaking here today. I only know the connection that I've made with the youth in the past week since this has gone past, and I'm really seriously concerned that young people's capacity to process this type of thing is not mature enough to understand that somebody didn't dot a T or cross an I in the right order. And I would ask council to be a little bit compassionate and understanding and give these youth some feeling of control over their environment. They're not asking to put up more graffiti, but this is what's going to happen once council takes that down, because they feel that they need to have some sort of control over something that they feel they came together and connected over to put there in the first place. So I would ask council to be a little bit compassionate in their decision to continue with the removal of that artwork, only because I have serious concerns for the mental health of the youth in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Scable. So, councillors, this notified motion seeks to reset the debate around the topic by aiming for a stay of execution for the previous decision of council, as you know. And that allows for then some community consultation to take place and possibly to fix the artwork that's there. There is an officer's recommendation in this particular notified motion. I'm not going to ask the CEO to speak to that because we know what the CEO and the staff have recommended. So we've done some community engagement training just recently, and we've adopted a corporate plan that focuses as a council our desire to connect with our community. But I hope that the debate that follows here now will be based on our desire as a council to interact with our community rather than being on a debate around process and an interpretation of artwork. So, Councillor May, you want to move this?
Yep.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Green? It's now a motion to council. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you to the community for your words in support of this motion before our council. It was a step that I didn't take lightly. I went home from the previous meeting and I actually replayed the council debate because I was quite taken back that we did not support this artwork at Camilleri Street Skate Park. And when I look back over the course of the debate, the main thing that stood out to me was of concern to the majority of councillors was around the lack of community consultation. So in that vein, I thought very long and hard about what I would do about that, and the only thing that I could do as a councillor was to put forward a rescind motion in order to be able to enable the community consultation to take place. As we know, it's a very important part of council is being in touch with their community, listening to the community. And I know I, for one, and I have advocated this since the day I was elected back in the year 2000, that I would be a strong community voice for our community. And I hold that very true to my heart, and I hope to deliver that day in, day out for our community across the Mackay region. But today we're focused on the Northern Beaches and the Camilleri Street Skate Park art. And I urge my fellow councillors to really think hard and long about what we are doing here today. It is so very important that we do not shut down the voice of community. That is the whole reason that we hold office, is to be here to represent the voices of community. And unless we actually hear from those people in a formal manner, which the majority of councillors at the previous meeting called out, we're not going to make a very good decision. So I employ my fellow councillors to really, this is just the stay of execution. Let's do the community consultation and bring a further report back to council for consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor May. Speaker against? Councillor Vella, speaking against.
I am. There are a number of reasons behind the decision made in the last meeting, and they're not just on process. Some of those reasons were outlined very clearly at that meeting. They're available in the live stream. Others were not outlined through good taste. Those reasons have not changed.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker for. Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yes, thank you. This mural is not a memorial, it's a public artwork. It was created out of community-raised funds and resources donated to Will Baker's family. The family was very clear they wished to see the funds given back to the community, specifically in a way that created a space for the local youth. They were adamant that a memorial was not what was desired. If this public artwork gives comfort to Will's grieving family and friends, then that is a beautiful thing. If it helps the local youth to reflect on a life lost too soon and to see the devastation of poor choices, then that's a powerful teaching tool. If it creates a sense of ownership and that third safe space outside of school and the home for the community youth to connect, as Sonia has said, then this is exactly what Council advocates for and supports. And to the many others in the local and wider community who come to this great park, it is just a great piece of public art that reflects and enhances the nature of the space it resides in the skate park. But I do take on Councillor Bella's points from the previous council meeting, stating, how do we know it doesn't create hurt for other members of the community? I also take on board the other councillors who were concerned with the lack of broader community consultation. This motion addresses those concerns while still responding and listening to the outpouring of support that we have seen from this community to complete and keep this mural. Conducting this community engagement will find out how the whole community feels, and a resounding and sensitive decision can be made. To ignore the community's response will cause deep hurt, it will cause harm, it will cause anger, and there will be a negative response in the community and reputational damage to council. I implore councillors to take this opportunity to listen to your community that is speaking to you. Bring them along on the decision-making journey, empower them, and reflect on a whole of community response that is not based on assumptions, but on fact. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Speaker against. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? Councillor May, do you wish to exercise a right of reply?
Yeah, thank you very much, Worship. Just really to wrap that up, it is really about hearing from the community. And as a council, in the past, we have a whole range of mechanisms where we engage with the youth, and the Youth Out Loud project is one of those mechanisms. One of the very strong statistics, or one of the very strong voices that come out of that engagement with young people was about spaces for young people. So here's an opportunity at our fingertips to be creating spaces for young people. The Young Mayor's program that we went to yesterday afternoon, what a fantastic program. Makai is the very first place that the Young Mayor's program is being rolled out. The speak in the room yesterday was all about empowering young people to have a voice, to be part of the decision-making process. This is an opportunity to allow that to happen. And the other point that I want to make is around, and I've heard it in this chambers many, many times, that the bureaucracy has to do the nuts and bolts and those sorts of things. But as councillors, we are the heart of the community, and I employ my fellow councillors to let's undertake the community consultation and bring it back for further consideration. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion's lost. Thank you. Public participation, I think. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Any late business? Councillor Bella.
I'd like to have a talk about something that occurred on the weekend, something very dear to my heart. The All Abilities football played an internal exhibition game. Something that actually was kind of touching was that I'd put out some advertisements basically on social media. Not only did a couple of councillors share that as well, I received apologies from a number of councillors that would like to have attended, primarily Councillor Hassan, Councillor Englert, Councillor Jones and Seymour. It was great to actually have Councillor Mann and Townsend there giving me a hand. That was tremendous. Councillor Bonaventura was to attend. He was the bus driver, but he took a right turn when he hit the highway and ended up in Townsville instead of coming down to Serena. But what was actually great, I had a couple of guys that used to coach with me, got involved. They're coming on board, as I said, a niece of mine. The other councillors that turned up there, actually a bit of hands-on stuff with them. And I've got to say, these are my friends, and I'd term them my students. We're teaching not just the sport, but some basic manual skills, the ability to run, the ability to stand on one leg, balance a ball, all of those things that have been really difficult for some of them. And the advances they've made are tremendous. But we're also doing a certain amount of work on life skills. I give very clear boundaries on what they can and can't do. There are very clear repercussions, as Councillor Mann would have seen, if they don't do it with a little bit of focus and a bit of speed. And the reason for doing that is I'm teaching them how to interact with others in stressful situations. We've seen one guy who's very popular with us all. He's a big fun guy, but when things don't go his way, he gets a little bit upset. And we've been able to get in there and pull that back, that he recognises the behaviour and stops straight away. And that in itself will make his life so much easier when interacting with the general public. Once again, I'd like to thank those that turned up, those that tried to turn up and couldn't. There are a number of games and training sessions throughout the rest of the year. And I just hope for Councillor Townsend and Councillor Mann that you kind of feel as good in here as I do when we do that sort of thing. Thank you.
Further late business? For the late business, we have some confidential reports to consider. Does anybody want to close the meeting? No? Okay, let's move through the confidential reports. The Legal Services Monthly Report for June. Somebody like to move its adoption? Councillor Bonaventura moves, Councillor Green seconds. Those in favour? Any against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The draft minutes of the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program, the Advisory Committee meeting of the 11th of July. Would somebody like to move they be adopted? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Englert. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. The approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for June 2022. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the 2022 to 2026 Gold Coast Suns Football Club Partnership. Somebody like to move? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Englert seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Jones and Councillor Bonaventura recording a motion against. The motion's carried. 17.5, the approved concessions under the Facilitating Development in the Makai Region Policy for June 2022. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Hassan moves, Councillor Mann, seconds. Those in favour? Any against?
No, I'll speak.
No, that's right. No, it's just the delay, and Councillor Townsend. You're voting in favour of that, Councillor Townsend? Thank you. Okay, the motion is carried unanimously. Thanks very much, councillors. Thanks, CEO and directors. Declare the meeting closed.